So this morning, I've been thinking about why sometimes it's very hard for empaths to leave the narcissist. And this is for very obvious reasons. Because you see, when I was with the narcissist, I knew that I had to leave these particular guys. I knew I had to leave. You know, there's those moments where you feel that you need to plug out of that equation. And believe me, guys, it took me 7 years. So normally when I talk to you guys about leaving the narcissist, I've always told you guys it's very difficult. So I know, because I've already been there. I know that it's very difficult to leave those individuals, because those individuals, there is something what they do to you. Some of you guys want to call it voodoo. The psychologists will call them the trauma bonds. But in the spiritual family, we call them soul ties. So the soul tie with the narcissist is very, very intensive, because the narcissist, they will use each and every manipulative way they can think about to tie themselves to you. So they find a way that they can tie themselves to you, whereby even if you have to leave them, so there is so many things you're going to think about. If you're trying to leave a narcissist, you're always going to figure out the pros and the cons. If I leave these individuals, what is going to happen to the kids? If I leave these individuals, how are they going to pay their bills? Sometimes those narcissists, they have got very difficult, very terrible health situations. You know what I mean? They have got a lot of issues with their health. And most of the times, those issues, they're also connected to their narcissism. You know what I mean? So whatever it is they're facing with their health, it is also connected with their narcissism, because they're already mentally sick eventually. And the person who is mentally sick, they also become physically sick, physically ill. So normally you see them with taking a lot of medication, you know what I mean? They have a lot of tablets in their shelves. They have a lot of different types of drugs. A lot of them, they are attached to various kinds of addictions. So most of the times, their physical health, they're not already doing well physically, health-wise, mentally, emotionally. So you're thinking about, if you leave those kind of guys, if you're parents, or if they're husbands, or if they're your partners, or things like that, how are they going to survive? Who is going to take care of them? And most of the times, you find the victims going in roller coasters, they're going in circles. Like for me, in my case, I remember those days. I used to leave. I would leave. I would go out there. In a day or two, I forgive them. You know what I mean? Sometimes we have an argument. I want to leave. I'm thinking about the pros, the cons. What is going to happen to me? What is going to happen to the narcissist? What is going to happen to this? So you're already thinking about all these kind of things, little things. And most of the times, your fears are justified, because believe me or not, when you leave those individuals, those fears are going to come to play, because now you're going to see the real reason as to why you shouldn't have left them. So it is extremely difficult to leave those individuals. And most of the times, these narcissists, they know it. You know what I mean? They'll just not tell you this. They know it. The narcissist needs a trauma bond. They need to trauma bond you to them. They have got to tie themselves to you, whereby when you ever think about leaving them, going away and carrying on with your life, it is going to be very difficult for you. So you're always going to think about them. You're going to come back to them. So that's why you see all these love bombs. They are very intensive. You guys know about the love bombs. You've heard me talking about the love bombs. The love bomb usually is very intensive. You know, so they will love bomb you intensively. And then the trauma bonds are going to kick in. You know what I mean? And then before you know it, they'll make you pregnant. You know what I mean? After 3 weeks, the women there, you'll miss your periods. After 4 weeks, they will come around and tell you, oh, you know, they are pregnant. Or sometimes the men, they will make sure that they try to make sure they get you pregnant very quickly. Because for them, inducing a trauma bond also includes doing some of those little things that are going to make sure that they bind the two of you together. So things like kids, pregnancies, things like marriages, you know what I mean? You get married to them. And then all of a sudden, before you're thinking about leaving them, you're thinking about the divorce, you're thinking about where you're going to move. A lot of you guys have already moved in with them in the next, within a week, you've already moved in together. So leaving them, it looks like it's not an option. You know what I mean? If a person is trying to leave a narcissist, you will sometimes notice that leaving them is almost not an option. You're thinking about it, but you don't know how to do it. Guys, I struggled for 7 years. 7 years, you can imagine. I was just trying to leave one person for 7 years. There was kids involved. There was a marriage. You know, there were a lot of these financial details involved in the marriage, in the entanglement and everything. So a lot of people, they find themselves trapped. If it's your parents, for example, sometimes they're aging, they're already old, they've already grown old. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're walking with sticks. A lot of them, they have got very, very serious complications with their health. Now you're out there, you're thinking, I'm going to leave these guys. Am I not sure they're not going to die in the house? And in most of the cases, they will even die in the house. When you leave them, let me tell you something. When you leave those individuals, you'll find them after 3 weeks. They'll be found dead in their homes. So, what I'm talking about, narcissistic abuse, people, is very serious. You know what I mean? It's very serious. So that's why you see we guys who are trying to come out here and we're telling you about this kind of abuse. We're trying to enlighten you guys. We're trying to wake you up. For a lot of us who have gone out and got into the other side and understood the depth of this abuse, we come out here to help you. We give you the little details. Those little details that you need to know. For the most of you guys, if you're still tied to them. So the little details that you need to know, sometimes an empath, you have got to choose yourself. Because you see, empaths, you being an empath, those individuals, they came to you because they were like, oh, this guy is a very soft guy. Oh, they are very nice. They are very soft. You know, they are so kind. You know what I mean? I can just do this and I can just do that and they can get away with it. They know this. Just because you are an empath, you are a very kind human being. The narcissist will not date another narcissist because they know when they date another narcissist, that will be like a very, very big explosion in that house. It is going to be a very big explosion because they are going to be killing each other on a daily basis. They are going to eat each other up. Nobody can pour into the other one. The narcissist doesn't have the ability to pour into the other narcissist, and the other narcissist also the same thing. So they cannot pour into each other. They are just going to eat each other up. You know what I mean? That's the reason why they always follow up with empaths. You know? So they like people who are kind-hearted. You know, you're going to forgive them. You're going to be sitting there somewhere there. You have an argument. Oh, sorry about this. You know, sometimes a lot of you guys, you have found yourselves even apologizing for those things that you've not even done. You have not done anything. And the nurse is telling you, oh, how come that I placed this item here and I found it there? Sometimes even they're going to be moving the things themselves in the house just to make an argument. And then they're going to come around and ask you, why did you remove this item from here? I put it here in the morning. Why did you remove it and put it the other side? And they're the ones who have moved that item. You all of a sudden start up an argument. You know what I mean? But you can imagine sometimes, guys, you can imagine. You're living with somebody. And then it feels as if every single day you're in a battlefield. You're in a war zone. You're fighting a battle. You don't even know what kind of battle you're fighting with. But I can guarantee you guys, for the most of you guys, empaths, when you're dealing with these narcissists, you're fighting a spiritual battle. So it's spiritual warfare. Let nobody ever fool you. You can forget about those disorders they are talking about, mental this, mental that. You can forget about disorders. You're fighting with the narcissist on a daily basis. You're fighting a spiritual warfare. And the only battle you're fighting at that moment is a battle that is going to destroy you. A lot of empaths, let me tell you something, by the moment you leave the narcissist, that is when you're going to count the losses. You're going to look back and you'll count the losses. You'll lose your houses. You lose your mental health. You lose yourself in that process. You don't even know who you are. You've already lost your identity. You do not know who you are. You know what I mean? You guys have heard me talking about the identity switch, whereby you guys start to switch identities. The narcissist starts to be like you. They steal your empathic abilities, and then now you copy their empathy, you copy their narcissistic abilities. That's why you see a lot of these empaths, when they're living narcissists, the first thing the empath will realize and will start to think about is that, are they the narcissists themselves? Because there's a lot of narcissistic traits you have learned from them. You have learned a lot of these traits from them. You picked up so much from them. You're almost vibrating like the narcissists themselves. And on the other hand, when they run over to the new supply, they are now storing all these your nice qualities and good qualities, and that's what they're using with the new supply. So you see those narcissists, they will come around and they they'll ask you to go for loans. You know, go take a loan because you know what, we can even sometimes build a house, or we can buy a house, or the things like that. You're going to the banks and you're taking a very big, massive chunks of money because the narcissist has told you that they want to buy a specific car, or they want to build a specific house, or they want to go on a holiday. So you're now going to start taking loans on behalf of the narcissists. Now you're going to leave them and you're going to think, how are you going to deal with those loans by yourself? Because let me tell you something, when you're thinking about these financial ties with the narcissists, you are the one who's going to pay for that. The narcissist will use you to take the money. But when it comes to time to pay back that money, they are going to run away. You're not going to see them anywhere. They will run off. Oh, it's your responsibility. The account is in your name. So don't even bother asking me about that money. The account is in your name. You're the one who took the money, but that money used it together. You took that money and you spent it together. But when it's time for accountability and to pay back, they're nowhere to be seen. They've already disappeared and gone. They have nothing to do with it. It's in your account. You're the one who's supposed to pay, and they have nothing to do with it. Now, how are you going to leave that kind of situation? You're thinking about leaving. When you're talking about leaving the narcissist, guys, let me tell you something. There's a very big reason why you see people, they have been stuck with narcissists for 25 years. You know? You're spending half of your life. You can imagine, guys. You could be 40, you could be 50. You have spent 25 years, 20 years, 14, 15 years with a narcissist. You can imagine that big chunk of your life. You've been spending it with the wrong individual. And then they have already destroyed you completely to the ground. They have destroyed everything about you. Now you're leaving them. And then the empath, you know, the victim, the empath, you're thinking in your mind, how are you going to survive? Where are you going to find your next house? You know, for me, my cases, those days, I was worried about accommodation. You know, when I was living the narcissist, I was a bit worried about accommodation because, you know, sometimes you're very comfortable. You know what I mean? You've been building all this time. You've been building for years. You know what I mean? You've been building with somebody. You build this, you build that, you buy this, you buy that. Then you build a home eventually because, of course, you're married to them. So you build a home. This home that you think, apparently, is your home. And now you're thinking, how are you going to leave your home behind? You have got kids with them. You have been married to them. You know what I mean? They do all these little things on purpose. They know. They know those individuals. They know from the bottom of their empty hearts and their empty souls. They know that there's going to come a time whereby you're going to leave them because they know that they know that they're not worthy of you. They know that they're not worthy of you. They know this from the bottom of their empty souls. They're not worthy of you, and they know there's going to come a time whereby you're going to snap. You're going to jump out of it. You're going to know what's going on, and you're going to jump out of it. They know because this has been a cycle. You know, they've been having this cycle for ages, and they know at some point you're going to snap out of it. So the only thing what they have to do this. They have to find some kind of a manipulative way whereby they can now tie themselves to you. It is going to be completely impossible for them to leave. It's very difficult, guys. You don't think so that a person who has stayed 20 years with a narcissist and they have awakened at 20 years or 25 years after those entanglements, you cannot think so that they have not already tried before to leave those individuals. They have even sometimes left them for some months. You guys have heard about the Hoovers. Sometimes you leave them because of the intensity of that abuse. Sometimes you're like, you're not going to handle this. You leave them, you go out there, you spend a month or two. Before you know it, they have already come back in. And you don't know how these guys, you don't know how they come back. Guys, let me tell you something. The Hoover is very funny. You will leave a narcissist for 1 month, for 2 months. You start working on yourself, you start feeling happier, you know, everything is okay. Before you know it, in a day or two or something like that, or in a week, the next morning you wake up with a narcissist in your bed. You have not been with them, you've not been with them for a month. You've left them. Let me say you've got a temporary discard. You've run away for a month, or you run away for 2 months. Before you know it, you wake up the next morning, the narcissist is in your bed, and you don't know how you go to that situation. So those individuals, they call them master manipulators for a reason. They know what they are doing. They know their game. It is a game they will play. They've already played it before you. They will play it for as long as they live. That is the only game they know how to survive. It's the only way, survival mechanism they have in their lives that they can do to manipulate an empath to that level whereby you cannot leave them. So it's very difficult to leave the narcissist. So the reasons why you see you find it hard to leave the narcissist is because of so many things. You know what I mean? It's because of medical reasons. They are your parents. They are aging. Who is going to take care of them? You know what I mean? They may die in the house. You're worried about them. You're already trauma bonded with them. Financial reasons, you have already taken so much money from the bank. You know, you could have taken thousands of dollars and you're struggling to pay back that money, and you're thinking about how you're going to pay back that money by yourself, because already you know that when you leave them, it is now going to you to face that to face those bills by yourself, because the bills are in your name. You know what I mean? You've already bought mortgages, car financing. Sometimes you're pregnant with them. You know what I mean? By the time you realize that you're with a toxic individual, you're already 5-6 months pregnant, and you're thinking now you're going to go out there and leave the narcissist. You've got a pregnancy, you've got a baby coming up in your stomach. How are you going to survive with that child? You're thinking about all these things, and it's almost impossible. Guys, it's very difficult to leave those individuals. But I can guarantee you guys, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter what the narcissist will do. They may play their games for years, 10 years, like you guys have already had, 20 years. But the day is going to, a day of reckoning is going to come whereby the empath is going to snap. You're going to snap. It doesn't matter who you are. You will snap. Because that's the kind of abuse that will intensively push you to go out there to seek for answers. And you see, the only thing that will ever bring you to that recognition that you're dealing with a narcissist is you starting to look for answers when you notice you're being treated in a very terrible and manipulative way. For an empath, what they do, they will go out there and start seeking for answers. And believe me, guys, before you know it, you're going to land on that word that you're dealing with a narcissist. And the moment you land on that word, that's the dynamics when the whole thing changes. You snap out of it. You may not snap out of it eventually, because I've told you guys, normally when you discover these individuals that you're dealing with them, those toxic guys, so there are procedures to leave them. You know what I mean? You don't just wake up and, you know, and then you sit down with them. Oh, I'm leaving. For me, it was like that because I'd awakened. You know what I mean? I'd already snapped and I'd awakened. So I had the courage to do that because I'd already, you know, like, completely shifted my entire, you know what I mean? I'd already shifted to that sense whereby I could now face the narcissist head on. You know what I mean? I could take the narcissist head on, because I discovered these guys are very big cowards. You know what I mean? They're very big cowards. Most of the time, they make you believe. They want to make you believe that they're very strong. They are very, you know, they're all these almighties and everything. But those individuals, they're little babies. You know, they're very scared little babies. They have no power in them. They have been all these years relying and depending on your power. But now that you're leaving, that's when you're going to see the real person that you dealt with. That's when you're going to see them. They're going to start running and hiding under the beds, because they're going to know this empath has already now understood, and they have snapped, and they know who they are. So they will know that you figured them out, and that's when the narcissist is going to go into shock. So narcissistic abuse is real, empaths out there. Narcissistic abuse is real, but at the same time, for a lot of you guys who don't know what to do, you're with your husband at home, and you know they're treating you in a certain way. You don't understand what is going on. You're suffering in some kind of a way on a daily basis. The only thing you're supposed to do, you're supposed to start seeking for answers. You can always speak about stuff. Guys, let me tell you something. The reason why the narcissists, they shut you off to the entire world, that is because they don't want anybody to know what is going on in that house. That's why you see them, they will send off your sisters and send off your brothers and your family. They don't want you to communicate with anybody, because they know at some point somebody is going to say something. Your mother's going to start to see the patterns. Your mother's going to tell you, hey, listen, my daughter, the way I'm looking at it, it looks like that person you're dating, the person you're married to, the way they are behaving is very tricky. You know, you need to find, you know what I mean? So you're going to get answers from the outside world, and that's what they don't want to know. They don't want you to know. So that's why you see they, first of all, isolate you and put you in a small corner. Now they can start the abuse. And there's no evidence. Nobody's watching them. Nobody's watching them. Nobody's seeing them. Now they can start abusing you, and there's nobody to run to. So they will shut you down from your family and friends, you know, so that nobody can see the abuse that is going on in those entanglements. You know what I mean? So anyhow, it's possible to leave a narcissist. We have left them. A lot of guys around the world, coaches, warriors are out there, survivors, we have left them. You know what I mean? Do not feel sorry. Don't ever sit down by yourself in your house and start feeling guilty because you've left a person behind, a very toxic individual behind. It's going to take a lot of pain to understand this. You will know that it was for your own good, but at the same time you'll feel guilty about it, because at the end of the day you're thinking in your mind there is something going to happen to them. Guys, let me tell you something. You are either going to choose yourself, or you're going to choose the narcissist. It's one of the two. It can't be both of them. You are either going to choose yourself, or you're going to choose the narcissist. And if you choose yourself, then you're going to leave. Whatever happens to them is not your business. Because when they were abusing you for all those years, for those 10, 20 years, they never thought about you. They never thought about you that they were destroying your health. your finances, your mental health, you know. They never thought that they were destroying you. They were abusing you for their own satisfaction. But now that you left, let them face the consequences. Guys, it is going to be consequences evolve. Those individuals, they're going to round downhill. You know what I mean? And it is never ever going to end well with them, but you don't want to be a part of that. You know what I mean? So you want to stay out of it and just work on yourself. You want to be a part of, you don't want to be a part of that. So that being said, guys, let us know what you think about this video in the comment section below. Guys, you always know I love and appreciate your support. I really want you guys to book a session with me if you are suffering with narcissistic abuse. And I'm not even talking about mental disorders. If you understand that you're suffering with narcissistic abuse, get in touch with me. Guys, I will give you the details you need to know. And I'll break you free. Because that's what I do best. If you want to book and support to this, if you want to support and donate to this channel, you will find my Cashapp and PayPal in the links comment section below. You can always support. I do not really expect that, but if that's what you feel like doing, it's always welcome. You know what I mean? Until then, I'll get back to you in my next one, guys. There's Zuma signing out, and peace.